What's the craziest thing you heard or witnessed at a rich people's event? Story number one, I was a server at a really nice restaurant and ended up working a dinner in our private room for the president of a major movie production studio's birthday. One of the guests at the dinner was apparently a major producer and insanely rich. I heard them discussing how he had decided to collect every bottle of a very nice winemaker's specific vintage. To put it into context, this bottle would probably go for about $2,000 per bottle in a restaurant. Not sure what retail would be. He had a full-time employee tracking down private collections and restaurant wine cellars that might have bottles. At that point, he had over 4,000 bottles of that one wine, organized by serial number in a custom-made cellar. He told a story about how Martin Scorsese had badmouthed a franchise he funded, and when Scorsese later called looking for funding for The Irishman, he told him to go f*** himself. At one point during the dinner, his assistant, one of three assistants sitting at the end of the long dinner table, informed him that the first truffles of the season had been delivered to some chef in Tokyo. So producer guy goes, "Great. Anyone want to go to Tokyo this weekend for a truffle tasting?" A couple of people said yes, so he instructed the assistant to make sure one of the jets is available for the trip. They stayed 3 hours after we closed. Bought every bottle of the same brand of wine, different vintage, we had in our cellar for the road. Let me taste a 1989 Chateau Haut-Briand and tipped $30,600 for the lateness of their departure. Wild night. Story number two. Learned about the yacht life. I once had super wealthy bosses, and they were talking about their friend who owned several buildings and a big yacht. So the yacht was always ready to go, which meant that it had a full complement of personnel, paid full-time down to chefs and servers. It was basically a hotel at sea. The thing is, the guy rarely used it, so you had a boatload of bored people with nothing much to do. If the guy went to Europe, he would rather fly there and have the yacht head there ahead just in case he felt like using it. Which wasn't all the time. Reply: I worked on boats for a long time and heard of these kinds of gigs. Boats take constant maintenance, and there's always a little bit of something to do, but lots and lots of downtime. Those ocean crossings with a full crew and no guests are probably so much fun too. Story number three. When we were poor, our daughter went to a private preschool that was great for her disability. They accepted us at hardly any tuition in exchange for speaking at fundraising events on how our daughter benefited from being at the school. At their big, fancy yearly ball dinner, we were speakers, and they sat us at a donor table. We were literally stealing dinner rolls to make our Carl Buddig sandwich meat better. At the auction portion, one of the ladies explained that last year she bid on and won the African safari, but she didn't have anyone to go with her, so she donated it back to this year's event. As that vacation came up for bid, she goes, "Wait, my niece loves animals and travel. I'll take her." And she went and bought it for the second year in a row. Story number four, I worked a private event as a waiter. It was a rehearsal dinner. The father of the bride was telling everyone he chartered a private jet for his daughter and son-in-law to fly to Bali for their 6-week honeymoon, which he had also paid for. The jet was to stay there for their use for the duration of the trip, in case they wanted to visit other places if they got bored. The rehearsal dinner for 20 people was about $20. Working that event was probably the most I ever made in one night at that job. Certainly the easiest. Reply: our buddy was this rich trust fund dude, but he didn't dress rich. He had a nice apartment and was the type to cover the bar tabs. In my single days, he would say, "Hey, OP, you want to go to New Orleans?" He loved no, and I was broke, so my answer was always, I'm broke, so no, lol. But he would say, "No worries, I got you," and book a private jet for 5 to 8 of us. Dude was a good dude, but he loved his Ducati too much and unfortunately died from an accident. When one of our buddies got laid off and got behind on his mortgage payments, he paid off his past due and gave him money to survive for the next 6 months. Another reply: buddy of mine went AFK on RuneScape for like a week with his bot going ham on some trees. Couldn't get a hold of him, and he was a in TeamSpeak every night type of guy. It was his main way of social interaction. So I called his house phone, and his mom told us internet strangers that she hadn't seen him for a few days and was worried. He lived in a guest house on the other side of the property, mostly separated from his parents. She went to check on him. Not home. His clothes and toothbrush were still there, and it looked like he just walked outside. She starts calling around. We're all freaking out, thinking something happened, when finally someone says he was with his super rich buddy in France or Amsterdam or somewhere in Europe. Friend's rich friend was just happy one day and decided to take his buds to Europe for a week or two. Spur of the moment, I'm outside, get in the limo, we'll buy clothes and toiletries when we get there, type deal. He left so fast and got so drunk immediately that he forgot to tell anyone. Thankfully, he picked up when his mom called him, and he messaged our server to prove he wasn't dead. Lol. Had to walk his mom through how to shut his bot off so he wouldn't get banned on RuneScape. Story number 5. I was hired to be a photographer at a wedding. They had rented the venue at a very expensive vineyard. There was a mansion there, and as part of the deal, the bridal party got to stay at the mansion. The owner is almost never actually there. He lives in a big white house, if you know what I mean. I show up early the morning of the wedding, and I'm greeted by the butler, who's more or less exactly like what you'd think, but younger and not English. Throughout the day, I was all over the mansion taking pictures. During a lull, I was chatting up the butler. The weird thing was that he said it's shift work. There are basically 3 of them, maybe another guy for fill-ins, I'm not sure, and it's 8-hour shifts. So I was asking him, since wedding stuff is kind of seasonal and it gets cold here, like, if I showed up at 2 a.m. in January, one of you would still be here, all alone in the mansion, just knocking around on the odd chance the big guy shows up? And he was like, yeah, someone's always here. That just kind of blew my mind. Can you imagine just being the dude who sits alone in someone else's mansion, polishing the silver, waiting to see if they show up? 85% chance I'd let my guard down and they'd catch me running around in my boxers, dry humping the statues while blasting AC/DC or something. Story number 6. My friend had a friend who was one of those crazy rich Asian type of dudes. Watch the movie and you'll know exactly what I mean. One day, this rich dude was driving his Ferrari on the toll road. My friend was in another car, following him for a car meetup event. The dude crashes his Ferrari into another car, pulls over to the side of the road, gets out, and calls someone. Then he just stands there smoking a cigarette with my friend like nothing happened, totally unfazed. 10 minutes later, a yellow Lamborghini rolls up. The Lambo driver gets out, takes the Ferrari keys from the rich dude, and hops into the crashed Ferrari. The rich dude? He just gets into the Lambo and continues on like nothing happened. Apparently, the new driver takes the fall for every single crash-related issue. Oh yeah, the police were there the whole time, and they didn't even bother approaching the rich guy. Not a single word until the Lambo guy showed up. Story number 7. My buddy took me on a cruise with our local Ferrari club. The house we went to was owned by a member who had 8 Ferraris in his garage. At that house, he also had a real Michael Schumacher F1 car and a Ford GT. While we were there, he unveiled his new car, a custom-built Daytona SP3. The base price is around $2.2 million, but with all the customizations, it was closer to $3 million. The crazy part was the story he told about it. This was supposed to be an early build number car, but it was delayed. He had to ask Ferrari what was going on with his $3 million car, while he was putting in another order for a completely custom Ferrari that would probably cost even more. Spending more money on just 2 cars than I'll probably make in my entire life. Hearing that story while standing in a garage filled with more value than my entire family line has earned in generations really puts the wealth gap into perspective. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's story, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more incredible Reddit tales. Share your thoughts or your own experiences in the comments below. I love hearing from you all. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring those amazing stories.